All right, call the meeting to order. We'll get there.
We'll get there.
All right, we have a quorum, I believe. Number of people here in the building. We've got the DPW folks here. We got the fire department here. The Lions here as well, the school component. And I guess that's everybody. We already have attendance, so get that taken care of. Any public participation? Seeing none.
I see no hands up, so.
Very good. All right, we got a few budgets to run through tonight, and the schools are here to give us a little preview. I sent the book out late today. So I know a number of you, including me, really haven't had time to look at it, but Doug's got some information he'll cover. And other folks are here from school committee, so appreciate your time. Do you want to start, Kevin, with the fire department budget?
Sure, I'll go over it real quickly, and then if you want to jump to the subcommittee.
Yes.
The fire department, we're recommending that this budget be increased $748,637 over the current fiscal year. The increase in personal services is $737,637. The reasons for this increase are as follows. We finishing up the SAFER grant in fiscal 24. In fiscal 24, we had an approximate $300,000 budget offset to this budget. We won't have that next year. So to carry those firefighters that we brought on under the SAFER grant, we'll have to cover that $300,000 in the fiscal 25 budget. We also had raises for the chief and deputy chief to total $9,490. We also increased the overtime line item, which has been an issue for some time. We increased that by $50,000 for next year. We also included a physical fitness stipend, which is new to this budget, for fiscal 25, $45,000. And then the balance of the increase for personal services is $335,947, which is for the settlement of the fire contract, along with various step increases for the firefighters. Under contractual services, the total increase is $8,000. We increased the auto maintenance line item $5,000, and the radio maintenance increased $3,000 for next year due to increased costs. And then under materials and supplies, there was a $3,000 increase for motor vehicle parts, and that's due to higher costs. Total budget request for fiscal 25 is $7,466,154.
Very good, thank you. Dennis, I think you put together the subcommittee minutes. You have comments?
Basically, the biggest kicker in the thing is the raise increases and the SAFER grant coming off of being funded by the feds. The SAFER grant was about 2/3 of the personal services increase. We definitely needed the people to put the third man on the ladder truck when we put it in 3 years ago, and it's definitely worth it. But you know, we're paying the piper now, so that's the 11%. It isn't a big rate increase in their budget, but the SAFER grant is a big hunk of it. So there was no other way to go than to keep going what we got, and I think they did a good job trying to stay as level as they could. Thank you.
Okay. Chief or deputy, you have any comments? You want to work through questions? Want to hit some highlights maybe, chief, or you?
Yeah, just, I figured someone's gonna ask me about the overtime sooner or later, so, might as well start there. We went from, you might recall before the Safer Grant that we had a 10 staffing minimum. And we had 4 groups of 12, which gave us a cushion of 2 members per group. And when the Safer Grant came in, the department made a heavy push to get the 3rd person on the ladder truck. We actually were running with 3 people on the ladder truck during COVID because it just wasn't safe to do it with 2. So we upgraded it to 3, ran with 3. In the meantime, we hired the 4 safer firefighters, got them through the academy, got them on their shifts, and the town and the union negotiated up to 11 people for a minimum, still leaving us a cushion of 2 firefighters per shift. So the cushion never increased when we increased our staffing. So we're dealing with the same exact cushion that we had before. And as in last year, we've had quite a few injuries. Oftentimes our injuries are, people may only be out for a month or 2. And we've been experiencing a lot of joint injuries, shoulders. We had a broken elbow, some knee replacements. And they just take a while to recover from. And they were out. So that ate into our cushion some more. Instead of starting off with 13 people on a group, sometimes we'd start off with 12, and until I can make a transfer, sometimes it would drop down to the 11th, to the minimum. So we did all we could to save as much overtime as we could. I lost count of how many temporary lieutenants. For some reason, that rank just took a beating in the last 12 months. And 5 or 6 lieutenants at different points in the year were down and out. So we were making temporary appointments off the civil service list, and I got a very big, thick folder back in my office. In fact, we got to make another one because we just had a retirement. So, I mean, all that contributes to the overtime. Plus, we have 5 more people now, 5 more people with benefits that they earned, and they're using them. And
Okay.
that's it.
All right, I'll open up on the subcommittee for questions. From the committee and stuff. Ed, go ahead.
I'm curious about the fitness stipend, chief. How does that work?
That is exactly the same fitness statement that the police department has. I answered the question that way because, truth be told, I don't know much about it. We're gonna have to administer it very shortly, and I'm gonna have to bring somebody in. We should do that anyway. We should bring an independent person in to evaluate the department members. But I imagine there's some running and a lot of aerobic stuff involved in it, but I don't truthfully know exactly what they have to do if they attain a certain level of the fitness standard, that's what their stipend is based off of. So if they accomplish if they meet half the goals of the physical fitness test, they would get a certain amount of money. And then it goes from that, I think it's up to 80%. And then once you hit 80%, you max out. So we've never had it before. I was confident that probably at least 2/3 of the department would go for it because we have a very active department and they do work out a lot. So I talked to Chief Scory. I says, how much money do you budget for it? He budgeted, I think 30,000. And like I said, they're pretty active. They definitely work out on duty and they work out more off duty. So I started out with 45 and we'll have to make an adjustment to it next year, depending upon what's involved with it.
It's a national standard that we follow. Thought process is, like with the police, the stronger, the better they are, the less they get injured and less overtime. So
Yep. Oh,
it seems to have worked, yeah.
Look at it.
It's preventive.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it's preventive, yeah.
Thank you.
Ellie has a.
Yep, Ellie?
Chief, I just looking at the overtime, it looks like the increase is 50,000 budget over budget, but the run rate looks like it's running for this year. If you do it out to about 796,000, is there a plan to kind of keep it in line with the budget versus the run rate? Or is it just kind of I guess?
Well, we have we regularly budget an increase in overtime. Any increase in overtime or the overtime level that we forecast, for lack of a better word, is based upon the ability of the department to maintain 4 groups of 13. That's the whole key to the, how much overtime the department can run into. And unfortunately, I've been around I'm in my 16th budget now, and we have had a great deal of difficulty due to retirements and military deployments and injuries and a whole slew of other things, keeping 4 groups of 13. So I'm trying to attempt to address the deficit that we seem to run into every year. And I feel I wouldn't be doing my due diligence if I didn't make some move to increase the overtime, given that it never seems to be enough.
Right. I guess more of my question is not that I want to add to a budget, but is it enough of an increase? Because it's budget over budget versus what the run rate is. So if the run rate's up at 796 and you're at 630 for the budget, are we looking at potentially a deficit at the end of next year because your run rate currently is 796?
Well, I mean, I can't say that we're not going to run a deficit next year.
Okay.
I just, I wanted
It's
to
hard
ask
to
for
predict,
something.
yeah.
Transfer.
Yeah, I think,
Got it.
Ellie, if I can jump in, the last few
Yeah.
years, we've either a combination of reserve fund transfers or supplemental budgets in the spring to
Okay.
cover that run. And you're
Got
right, it's, I've been doing this for 16 years and I one year I'm gonna get it. It's very
No,
difficult.
I hear you. It's hard to
unpredictable.
predict. Yeah. Makes sense. Thanks.
And if maybe the whole safer grant didn't come off this year, maybe we would have increased that a little bit more.
Got it. Thank you.
Don't remember that, you two down here next year, they're gonna hit me.
Jim, can I jump in
Kevin,
just real
sure.
quick?
Kevin, yep.
Speaking on the overtime, we are gonna need for the fiscal 24, some type of reserve fund transfer or supplemental appropriation where the overtime is running quite high this year also. I'm projecting right now probably at least in the vicinity of $300,000 for the current fiscal year. So I just wanted to put that out there so there were no surprises come the end of the fiscal year when we need to add to this budget.
I wish you hadn't.
Dan, thank you, Kevin.
Yep.
Full
Yeah,
disclosure.
thanks a lot, Kevin.
Dan?
So Chief, I got a couple of questions on the second page. You've got 3 line items that are going up more than 18%. EMT, educational incentive, and the EMS coordinator stipend. Can you help me out with understanding why the large increases on those 3 line items?
Yep. When we negotiated, we're in the second year of a negotiated contract. Across the board, the members got a 2.5% raise. They also got negotiated an increase in their EMT stipend. And we'll start with the EMT. The EMT it's basically going up 0.75% of pop step firefighter base pay every 6 months for 3 years. So we're halfway through a contract. So by the time this budget becomes effective, they'll have already gotten a 1.5% raise in that stipend, which is it's an unusual for a stipend. Everybody gets the same amount. That's not usually how it works, but in this case, it does work that way. So that, I mean, that's a straight mathematical exercise. We just calculate what the increase in the stipend is and basically, for the most part, multiply it by almost 55. The paramedics get a higher bump, and we have one first responder that gets a lower bump.
Everybody on staff is an EMT or.
Yeah, everybody except one. We have 6 paramedics. So that will leave about 48 EMTs and one first responder. So that's that stipend. What was, you're probably wondering about education.
Yep.
Okay, that's fine. We can do that next. That was also a negotiated increase in that stipend in the contract. That went up 1%. Before the contract was negotiated, an associate's was worth 5% of your base pay. A bachelor's was worth 10% and a master's was worth 15%. This contract negotiates up 1% per year for each of the 3 years of the contract. I'm not going into too much detail, right?
No.
Yeah, okay. I just went up on that.
So a bachelor's degree incentive is how much this current fiscal year?
This current fiscal year, a bachelor's would be 11. That'll go up July 1st to 12, and that'll go up the following July 1st to 13. So they basically went from 5, 10, and 15 to at the end of the contract, it was at 8, 13, and 17 or 18. 18, yeah.
The third line item, Dan?
Just a straight EMT at 18%.
Oh, well, we talked about the EMT, and then we talked about the education.
No, he talked about the stipend.
Did you ask about the EMS coordinator? Was that the other thing?
That was the other
No,
one.
no, EMT was at 18% and the EMS coordinator stipend was at 19%. I thought you covered the EMS coordinator stipend, but not the EMT.
No, what I just talked about was the basic EMT stipend for everybody.
So the line item EMT is the stipend.
Yes, per person.
Got it. Okay, so
So that's going to be a large amount because it's everybody. We have
Okay.
55 members.
if you don't mind, I'm going to add the word stipend to EMT.
That's okay, yeah. And then the education doesn't affect everyone. About 2/3 of the membership have some kind of a degree. If you don't have a degree, you don't benefit from that stipend.
Right.
The-
Follow up on the following page, maintenance of radio
Right.
is a $3,000 increase. Is it just pure maintenance or is there some kind of upgrade involved?
We switched vendors, so we're using a new radio vendor. The vendor hadn't been switched for quite a while. And so the answer is we have a new contract with a new vendor and we're getting more services. They're actually specifically, they're doing a lot more maintenance on the portable radios in the hopes that they won't go down or out of service. Every department member is issued a portable radio. And, there's a sizable investment in all those portable radios. So we added something into the agreement where they would get some PM, if you will, preventive maintenance. And that's what that's what the increase is primarily.
Yeah, right. So there's a little bit of an upgrade in there.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Very good. That's it for me. Thank you.
I just have one question on the stipends then. So if you're a lieutenant, what's the approximate stipend for the EMT and the education each year?
The EMT is the same for everybody. It's 0.75% of the top firefighter step. They just picked that one rate and that rate goes up by a certain percentage every. So in other words, the old rate before the contract was negotiated was, help me out here, 7%, 8%, and 9%. Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So in other words, if you were a first responder, you get 7%, you get a stipend equal to 7% of the top firefighter step.
If I'm a lieutenant, do I get 7% of the top lieutenants?
No.
No, EMT is structured on top firefighter step. So that's what I meant before when I said it was a straight mathematical exercise.
So again, what does one firefighter get for a stipend for the education and EMT, would you say? Do you know the number?
Well, for an example, we'll pick a bachelor's degree.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Okay, so a firefighter out of this contract would have gotten 0.75%, a 0.75% raise every 6 months for being an EMT. And a bachelor's degree starting July 1st would be 12%. It used to be 10, it's 11 in this present fiscal year, and July 1st it would be 12.
12%.
And that's, I'm sorry, that's 12% of their base pay, that's not equal. That's not equal from one person to another. That would be more, in other words, that would be more money for a lieutenant. It would be more money than that for a captain.
Just trying to understand. So a firefighter at $80,000 gets a 12% stipend or a 13% stipend each year?
Yes.
12 plus 0.75? Is that a
Yes.
fair round number?
Well, yes, it's not 12%. It's not a 12% increase from one year to the next. It's
No. If
incremental.
I'm making $80,000 and I have those two, I get a 13% increase, so that's $8,000, that's $9,600, whatever that math comes.
Yep, yep.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else on the fire? All right, chief?
Thank you, guys.
Caught us on a light night. Good job.
Thank you.
And thank you for what you do every day and all year long. Appreciate it.
I appreciate the opportunity to come in front of you in person too. Yeah, I have a lot of trouble with that Zoom.
Dennis wants to say something.
Is somebody else there, Dennis?
Yeah, do you want to go over any capital outlay with him? Because he's got some new items in capital outlay that will be coming up. Do you need that now, or are you gonna wait until full capital outlay?
I'd wait till capital. I mean, I saw it on your notes, Dennis. If you want to hit a highlight or two, please do. I think, I know it was the Ford Explorer and the 1955 sailboat that they're still using, needs to be replaced, I understand, the whaler.
It's still working.
Guys, it still floats.
Okay, you could use it as a dinghy around a pond, maybe. I don't know. I'm trying to save people in it. 1980 whaler. Anything else, Dennis, you want to hit on?
The new item is the ATV vehicle and safety equipment for all the overhead doors.
Oh, yeah.
Those are the big item is the overhead doors.
Okay.
And I do think in the fairly near future, we're gonna be seeing apparatus being replaced, which I imagine we do with an article. I mean, as we have in the past. That's coming down the pike, so to speak.
Yes.
And if Salem Street gets done, we'll get a few more years out of that.
Absolutely.
Megan, I'd say that since they brought it up at the last
I don't
meeting.
want the boat trailer to fall off.
Should be getting a discount on.
When is that utility gonna take care of it? They paid.
They paid for it, we're doing it.
Oh, well, yeah. Ball in court then.
Absolutely.
Ball's in court this spring.
The dam is about to break any
Yeah.
day, so
Yeah.
be careful what you wish for.
Yeah. All right. Thank you both.
Thank you very much.
Deputy Chief.
did.
All right, guys. Next budget is the DPW budget, which Kevin go over the DPW budget. And then we'll have the team kind of cover it between the refuse summary and the overall department budget.
Correct. All right, thanks, Jim. DPW budget is actually 4 separate budgets. We have the DPW operating budget. We have the snow and ice budget. We have the sewer enterprise budget and the water enterprise budget. The first one we'll go over is the operating budget for DPW for fiscal 25. We're recommending an increase of $281,489. This increase breaks down Under personal services, the increase is $219,255. This includes contractual and negotiated increases. All contracts are settled with the exception of the clerical union. There is one new full-time position, which is a second shift custodian. That's going to be used at the police department, the Ace Building, and Vets Field. Under purchase of services, there's a total increase of $56,234. This increase breaks down under engineering. The total increase is $22,950. We increased the equipment maintenance and software line item $5,000. The training line item $1,250. The clothing and safety gear line item increased $1,700. And the professional services GIS line item increased $15,000. Under fleet maintenance, the increase was $15,000 for equipment maintenance. Under the building department, the total increase was $4,922 to the electricity and natural gas line item. We did offset some of the money that we bring in from the Civic Center to offset that 4922. The offset was an additional $1,138. Under forestry and parks, there was an increase of $11,500 under professional services. And also under cemetery, professional services increased $3,000. Under materials and supplies, the total increase was $6,000. That breaks down under engineering. The paper stock line item increased $1,000. And under forestry and parks, the line item for the artificial fields increased by $5,000. The total budget request for the operating budget for DPW for fiscal 25 is $7,252,058, with $7,141,318 coming from the tax levy and $110,740 coming from an available fund transfer. The available fund transfer, there's three items there. $46,738 from the perpetual care income account, $2 from the park trust fund income account, and $64,000 from the sale of cemetery lot account. That's it. Jim, do you want me to do all four at the same time, or do you want to go one at a time?
We might as well go one at a time if that's all right.
Okay.
So that was the DPW operating budget.
Correct.
So subcommittee, I'm part of the subcommittee, along with Dennis and Ellie and Stefan. So we met with the team and I sent you the minutes, but you know, we have I had an overall increase at that time of 4%, 4.038. I think it's about that, or maybe the numbers are slightly different, Steve, but you know, mostly DPW personal services, contractual obligations, one additional person for a second shift that Joe will review. Some overtime increases in the purchase of services was kind of already covered. The enterprise funds were pretty self-explanatory. They weren't substantial increases from MWRA, so that's always good. And so the DPW SOAR was minimal, and the water was 3%. Really, other than the one addition, we didn't have, I don't think, too much discussion. I don't know if Ellie or Dennis have anything else to add. Budget was 4%, like I said.
Yeah, no, Joe, you did a great job putting everything together, so thank you for that.
Thanks, I can't take all the credit, but I appreciate the compliment, for sure.
Yeah, Joe puts out a memo kind of covering everything as well. And so there were a couple of larger salary increases. And I added the explanation that Joe provided to us, to the body of our DPW subcommittee minutes. So if you saw those, that may help answer some of the possible questions. So with that, turn it over to Joe. I don't know if you want to hit any highlights in the memo, Joe, or Ann, or take questions.
So I think I know everybody here. I'm Joe Conway, the director. Behind me, you probably can't see on the TV, is Ann Waite, my business manager. I think between Kevin and Jim, they covered basically everything. So I guess if anybody has any questions that you want to dive into, if not, I can go into kind of some of the justification to the second shift FTE, or we can cross that bridge as the question comes, whatever's easier for the group.
Okay, I'll open it up for questions. Dennis?
I just have one question. The Common Street, I noticed you took money out for, income that we generate from the Americal Civic Center from the rentals to tenants in there. Do we get any money from Common Street or the that building behind for offsets?
We used to, but now it's only town personnel in there. So there's no rentals.
Where is the town employees union?
The credit union?
Yeah,
Tuttle Street. It's not in our buildings.
okay, thank you.
All right, I did ask about the body and Joe covered it, so you might as well give us the highlights, Joe, the addition to the department, please.
Yeah, so really, I mean, it's no secret. So we're building the bathroom down at Vetsfield. And one of the things that comes along with that is obviously maintenance, right? We could be there at 7 o'clock in the morning and 20 minutes later, it could be something that we have to go back to. So we're looking at a little bit of help, especially, that thing will be on a timed lock sequence. So I'd imagine it'll open sometime 7, 8 a.m. in the morning. It probably close around dusk, or it might stay open on a schedule based on what softball's doing. We don't know. So we had an exposure there in the second shift. So when we got into getting some pricing to see if we could get a contractor to come in and help clean, or at least be available to us if our staff wasn't, we were crossing like the $50,000 threshold. And essentially from something that went April 1 to November 1, 15th, maybe give or take, for very little bit more, it made sense to see if the request for a full-time employee that we cover all year long, and then we get not only, servicing that facility, but we added square footage to the public safety building. The ACE building is jamming all the time with rentals, the Civic Center. 9/11 Albion will probably end up being that. And the one thing that this also additionally solves now is, so I have one full-time employee who works out of the Civic Center at night. If she's out, I have to backfill with overtime. So now I'll be able to actually run one employee out and still have coverage without needing to fill a shift for the overtime. So that was some of the justification, for us to spend the same amount of money and only get part-time service. Didn't seem practical at the time. So we put this in and requested it, and that's kind of how we landed at that.
Okay. Ed?
Joe, I was reading your explanation for salary increase for one individual, but I was kind of intrigued. I don't know how hard it is to hire DPW folks, especially CDL drivers.
Yeah.
But, can you tell us a little bit about this program that you instituted here?
Absolutely. So this time last year, we had actually proposed a warrant article as seed money for $150,000 initially. Because the federal government changed the way how you get your CDLs now, I'm sure you're familiar with. You need to go to driver's education. I've been driving commercially for 20 years now, as crazy as that sounds to be to say that, but if I was gonna upgrade my license, I would actually have to go. It's 8 weeks, it's a set amount of hours, and if you miss a day, you're still required to hit the time. And it's very rigid. And it costs between, I think I said $8,000 and $10,000 an employee. One of our employees blazed his own trail, got set on a path to develop a curriculum and submit that to the feds in the state for approval. So we could become our own training facility in-house. Initially last year, when we set the budget, all the indications were that that was going to take time. It was going to take 6 to 8 months, something like that. And they couldn't guarantee it. So we didn't include any consideration for that on a salary basis. When this person was successful, it unlocked, a little bit of an upgrade. Fortunately or unfortunately, I guess depending on what conversation you're having, we were successful. We were successful in the short term. So we actually became a federally approved training facility in-house. One of the things I think that's really notable about that, so we'll have 11 employees since doing that have gone through that, all of which that we would have had to pay upfront for the CDL licenses. So we initially were going to approach it kind of like the police academy, where we would front the money, the employee would stay for a certain period.
Evan, they froze.
They
I think
froze.
somebody hit the wire again.
Mhm.
Guy, I haven't moved anything.
So when it rains out, we drive. If we're going to haul hot top or something like that, our permitted drivers drive. The only thing we have to do that we cannot do in-house is the driver has to take a we've been kind of very fortunate in that regard. So it was an interesting
Sounds
journey.
like a very innovative solution to a problem.
I would say so. Yeah, thank you.
And it's saved. Did you say how much you think you saved?
At least $88,000.
Yeah.
And that's not including the time savings.
Yeah.
So if you're sick in the middle of that 8 weeks, you just continue on the next week,
Yeah.
but you have to hit the hours you have to hit in the very rigid vet, so.
Just one more question. Is this unusual? Did I read this right? That the MWRA assessment actually lower?
Yes. I think on both sides.
Okay, I'm not used to thinking that.
Yeah, so one of the things that they did, on the sewer end, they changed the way that they're metering. So we've been a little bit fortunate there. We've also taken advantage of every I&I opportunity that we can annually. We're at the very end of what we can take for those $1 million loans to the 250 payback. Great news coming forward. The board of directors have to vote, but they're gonna extend that even further for us. So that's helping. And then related to the water end, the boys down inside the pumping house were able to optimize the time that they were on, get more water out of Crystal Lake. We were able to bring that down too. So.
Great. Thank you.
Good. Anybody else? Questions? All right, Joe, thank you. So that's operating. Kevin? Next, please.
The snow and ice budget, we're level funding at 850,000. So far to date, we're in good shape for the current fiscal year. Hopefully looking at another good return from this budget at the end of the fiscal year.
Okay, great. Where are we today?
We're anticipating a 6-figure return. We have a couple of bills for calcium chloride just to fill our tanks left. Couple of small things, but you're sitting in the high twos.
For return.
You know, as long as the weather cooperates with us, I think you'll be pleased with the number that comes back. We hope that that's the case too.
Yep, absolutely. Dan?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Joe, I missed the number. How much do you think you spent so far out of the 850 for this year? About close.
Hang on one second, Ann has it right in front of her, I think. I did. I started off.
You know, we closed everything one day. That saved us some money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
The poor schools made a very strategic decision.
I made it first. It was my fault.
So Dan, right around 5.5. So the last budget report that we did, there was about 333 left. Like I said, there's a couple of small bills that still need to be paid, but all the stocks, you know, the shed's full, all our chlorides are full. Couple other little things, and hopefully we don't touch it. It's
About 550, Dan, you hear that? Spent today? Is that right?
ballpark, yeah.
You're on mute, Dan.
Thank you.
You good? Okay. Kevin, last component?
SOAR enterprise budget increased $22,216 over the current fiscal year. Major changes here. There was an increase in personal services, 54,967. Contract was settled. Purchase of services increased $25,000 for equipment maintenance and software. And then under intergovernmental, there was the MWRA assessment decreased $88,711. Total request for 25 is $9,367,204.
All right, you want to do water as well?
Yes, water for fiscal 25 increased $240,855. Major changes here are increase in personal services, $65,310. Contracts are settled. There was a decrease in the intergovernmental line item for the MWRA assessment of $24,635. And then there was a large increase in maturing debt, $170,611. And that's for the water main replacement program. Total budget request for fiscal 25 is $7,470,570.
All right, enterprise questions.
Any need for new debt, any further capital stuff that you use debt on for enterprise?
No, I think related to sewer, like I said, as long as we can continue, if the board of directors votes so, we hope that they do, we'll be able to take advantage of that. That's great. We don't need to excavate. We can get capital replacement done to our infrastructure. On the water end, this project should give us probably 2 seasons, 2.5 seasons. Hopefully by that point in time, the rate structure will be able to pick up whatever might come next. So when the debt schedule goes out, once we get to about 29 and 30, it starts to fall off. By the time it hits 31, the maturing debt line in water is actually dropped by half. So we're floating a little higher than we want to be right now. But in a couple of years, basically when the project's finished, that should all start to.
And what's the term of the bond for that? Is it what, 30 years or?
It hasn't gone out to market yet. I think the longest you can take that, I know the water tank, the longest you can take it was 20.
Right.
So I think water mains remains the same. I think, we could try to do an SRF loan through the state revolving fund. The
Right.
only problem I have with that is like Main Street from Salem Street to Lowell Street, if you're driving towards 128, we need to put a water main in there. It's beyond the time that it is. The competition for the SRF stuff is going to a lot of places like down on the Cape that have water quality issues.
Mhm.
So if you're building a $25 million plant because you can't give people safe water, you're gonna win versus my capital project. So that'll go to market, and honestly, the debt projection, I think Abby's pretty optimistic that that will actually look a little bit rosier than what we have initially in here.
Mhm. Now we're hoping rates are going down. I think they will, yeah.
Keep waiting, right?
Wait till the fall.
We had a little CPI number recently, and a PPI number, and, yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Retained earnings, I know Ed usually asks about that, but retained earnings in both groups, okay?
They're good now. Consumption's down on the water end and the sewer end because of the wet winter that we had. So we're anticipating that we'll probably see some sort of a deficit. Although right now, we're going out to collection within the next 2 weeks. We don't believe at this time it's anything that retained earnings won't be able to cover and balance for us. So we'll just be paying attention to that as it goes forward, but that's been pretty healthy. The last couple of years, we've been able to take advantage of that and defer some borrowings and do some work out on the road too, which has been nice.
Okay. All right, so Salem Street, we got a schedule or?
Salem and Broadway will be coming very, very soon.
Excellent.
I'd say by the 1st of April at the latest. You'll see that, and then water tank is vertical. That's just about done being constructed. We're waiting for a mixing valve inside of it to turn it on. And then the 25th, they're gonna start replacing the water main on Green Street, and I hope that we can all forget that topic ever again, and it never becomes a thing. So it's about to get very busy.
So with the paving and everything, you call Steve to complain about traffic problems? Is that what you normally, is that what you
Yeah.
tell everybody to do, right?
They could call us, please.
Anybody else? Anything left, Kevin? Are you gonna review articles or is there anything else for you, Kev?
I think Joe's gonna do the articles.
Yep. Sorry, is there a hand up? Dennis?
The only thing in labor, it is the clerical union for all departments, right?
That's right.
All right, so the only increase in this budget will be when the clerical union is set, just like the fire department and other town budgets, right?
So we have 4 employees in that. I think 3 out of the 4 are not at the max step. They've been, what the rate is now, they've been reflected as gaining their step. There'll be 1, depending on whether they add, maybe new, but we should only see those employees go up, whatever the increase tends to be contractual. I wouldn't anticipate it.
About how many people in the political union, Steve, yeah?
20-ish.
20-ish, yeah. Negotiations are going.
Negotiations are ongoing.
Thanks, Dennis. Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
All right, articles.
I'm gonna turn the over to Ann.
So first article is eminent domain. It's for $1. It's just an annual staple that we put in there. It's essentially an insurance policy for us to be able to go on to people's property if we have an easement or there's we need to do it. Doesn't happen that often, but it's there in case. Second one is refuse, recycling, and yard waste. That's $2,456,958. That covers curbside pickup, disposal, the pit, anything else related to that. That's contractual, mostly the increase on that for the disposal and for the curbside pickup. Disposal, we're in our second to final year of the contract, and the curbside contract is up FY27.
You feel there's an impact in that, right? You kind of talked about that at the subcommittee level, not impact, you have some.
Yeah, so we're in a good spot now, I think, especially, I know when I first came to town hall. Flip a coin, roll a die, you didn't know what was gonna happen in this industry. You know, when China started locking everything down, we're pretty good. What we do anticipate will happen, right now, we don't pay anything per ton to process recycling, it's 0 lump sum. That will be something that will come up, so you'll probably have a processing fee related to recycling when time is up to negotiate. The other thing now is, on any of the middle weights in the industry are gone. Most, you know, there's really the big 3 of the global companies. And, you know, we have relationships with all of them. They have relayed to us, they won't even bid on it, right?
Right.
Unless we're set up to be automated. So that is a consideration that'll be coming. We'll probably be early for it. There's some grant funding. So instead of having your blue toter outside, you may have a blue and a green one. Coming forth, I talked to the disposal company actually yesterday morning. And, you know, they can't give me a locked in price yet. They have to run it through their people, but I was pleased with kind of the range that they told me. I think that would increase in, so I think that'll be palatable. And if it's on the lower end, what we'd like to do is try to lock that in for 5 to maybe 10 years if they'll take it, so that we have some predictability there. So I'd say probably by this time next year, there'll be more conversations on that, just to kind of stay tuned.
Okay.
We're ahead of it, so we want to be early to the dance normally.
So automated container for regular garbage and then automated container for recycles.
All of their business models are set up to be that way. From their perspective, they don't have anybody on the back of the truck. They only need one person. I think the reason why they're not set up for it now is they can't get the vehicles fast enough. So at some point in time, that'll be coming.
Joe, the disposal contract, you say, Andy says it's up, but 2 more years to go, or
So we'll be up at the end of next fiscal year.
next fiscal year? Okay. So how many years was that? Was that a 10-year contract, or?
That was,
I know you changed.
that was a 5-year.
5 years.
So we've used Covanta in Haverhill. And we've actually been lucky they run a transfer station in Danvers that we use.
Yeah.
So we get to shoot up there. That was an amendment to a contract we had done for 30 years.
Yeah. So the rate is $101.30 per ton,
Correct.
right?
Yep.
How's that tonnage rate relate to, you know, other communities? Is that a good deal?
It's right in the ballpark. If you look at what Boston just did, I think they just re-upped with Quincy. You're somewhere between, you know, high 90s, 110.
Mhm.
On the lower end of that. I think that you if I had to guess, the optimistic part of me would say that in 26 would probably be around like 105, 106.
Can you speak up 100 what?
105, 106. I'm hoping, you know, that they show an increase of about 3.5%, something like that. And they said they'd be willing to talk long-term. Maybe we can even beat that down a little bit. So
And so your projection is 7,500 tons for the fiscal year?
that's what we budget for, yeah.
Okay.
Since we went to the automated collection, some of the guys Russell used to.
That's right.
They're out of the business if JRM came in, but the toters stayed the same. And it's been super predictable. Before that, we were almost 11,000 tons. So, you know, we fluctuate between 72 and 7,400. It's pretty rock steady, I would say.
Yes,
That's
absolutely.
no surprises there, really, for the most part.
Right, Dan?
Yeah, I have a real minor nit at the bottom of the diversion offset. I'm thinking, wow, 24, we had a positive 120,000, and then for 25, we got a negative 120, and the two cancel each other. And then I looked at the totals, well, wait a minute. You're subtracting the 120 on one of them, not adding it. It's like, wait, which way are we going here? So I'd only ask for a consistency going forward. If you're going to use a negative sign for the 120, keep it negative. If you're going to say positive, keep it positive. But it's like, it's like, what? Anyway, so momentary confusion. But what is the diversion offset anyway? I don't know what that represents.
You want to take that one? I'll jump in. You can jump in. It's two things primarily. So when the town council voted to sticker bulk collection, you know, if you have a large item now, it's $20 pickup. That's part of it. And the other piece to it is some of the things that we're doing at Nahant Street, like metal collection and things like that. So we're actually taking all the metal that you have and you can get down there, we'll figure. And instead of it going into the blue toter and weighing out at Covanta and Haverhill, we're sending it to the scrap places in Lynn and Chelsea and actually bringing money back. The amount of weight that we've brought through there is staggering, actually.
Yeah, 15.28 tons of scrap metal has gone. So not in the trash, but down at the pit. So that's been huge.
Yeah, we got a grant for that through the state about the dumpster, and
And that's just, you need a pit pass and then you come in.
you don't even need a pit pass.
Yeah, we'll take.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, cardboard too, the same thing. So the commodities are good right now. If you have the means to get it there, we'll.
So you don't care if there's a drive-by that drops into the pit? You know, we got
As long as-
Saugus?
As long as the pit's open,
Yeah, right.
it's generally Wakefield residents, but you know, if you're.
I was just wondering how
You're cleaning
how
out,
it's
you know,
handled.
the kitchen cabinet, you wanna bring all your forks and knives down there and throw it in the thing, we'll take it, 'cause it all adds up. So.
All right.
And one last thing, I think we tried to do a few little things, like, I don't know if people were aware, we collected string lights, so Christmas lights. And I know it doesn't sound like much, but it was 900 pounds, but it's 900 pounds that doesn't mess up the machinery. It makes us, they like when we do things like that.
Sure.
Like, Republicans like, thank you for not putting those in the trash.
And
I think that-
copper is valuable.
Oh, yeah, I think the craziest one is the textiles, so this number since we started it, or is that a
That's
year?
just this year.
94 tons of textiles.
Stop.
At those bins at the schools. It's amazing. They've gone to 2 pickups a week now because people are using the bins.
So if there's a way to get it out of the incinerator, we're gonna try to do it.
Good.
You know, as long as the, you know, logistical mechanics are there and we're not going too crazy.
It's all
Makes
on your website.
Most of the thing, yeah.
We had a
Talk about it all the time.
pickup at Town Hall during the holidays, and it was constantly full. Constantly, people driving all the time, all weekend.
Yeah.
They didn't have a pass or anything, who knows where they were
No,
from,
it
dumping
makes
everything in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, all set? Anybody else? Anything else in the articles?
Yeah, so those are those two. The only other ones I kind of covered it. So you saw there's a $5 million borrowing for water. At least initially, we're gonna go after Main Street, Salem to Lowell. Aborn Ave, Emerson Street. And then we have about 8 to 10 other places we could go. Depending on what the base bid comes at, we're gonna fit as many pieces into the puzzle as we can to maximize how far that goes. What's gonna drive that outside of doing the most for what we have? Water quality, age and condition, and then fire flow conditions. So if we know we have a low pressure area, we might be doing work there. Main Street, obviously, the thing keeps breaking, we have to work on that. And things like that, so. I could stop there, I could keep going.
When will Aborn Ave be done?
They should be breaking ground on it this construction season, so soon enough. So one of the things up that corridor too is there's gonna be a lot of work on Cabot works. You know, the things that they trigger to start the drainage work that they're paying for and the sidewalks and things like that, we wanna be out of the way. So the water, the sewer will be done, the gas is new. You know, you roll out the sidewalks, the fresh carpet, and we don't wanna look at that till hopefully the end of my career.
Okay. Last one.
The only other thing, so the fuel island, at North Ave, we asked for $150,000 for design work to that. That essentially, it's at the end of its 30-year window. The tanks are warranted for that period of time. So they're at the end. They're not in bad shape. We don't have any leaks present or anything, you know, that's scaring us. So we're looking into replacing them on site. We know that we have to dig through the ground because there's some underground work there. And we know that there's an activity use limitation on the site from an oil spill a little while ago. That was gonna drive the cost up to do that project. We would have to move some soil and things like that. In talking to the manufacturer, we actually explored potentially moving them to Nahant Street. We took a look at it from 10,000 feet and they said, you know, if we were to be able to do that, we can turn the trucks and vehicles through that. And we could probably see quite a substantial savings, over $500,000 by moving it. The other benefit to that is that, you know, we take some of the truck traffic away from right next to the middle school, what snarls up that intersection sometimes. Be able to do that though, regardless of whether we put it at North Ave or we put it at High Street. We need engineered drawings from a structural standpoint for what's underneath them to support the 8,000 gallons of fuel per tank. So that'll start that process. So once we get that rolling, probably sometime in the fall for fall town meeting, we'll have what we think the actual construction costs to be dialed in. And we'll be coming back for a warrant article to do that. That services everything in the town. One question we did get on that is if we looked at using a private company to do that. Two things with that, up until the gas station at the corner of Lowell Street and Vernon Street is constructed, there's no diesel fuel in town. Which means the fire station, the fire trucks and some of our big stuff have to go out of town to get fuel. The other thing too is that we pay a wholesale rate for fuel. We would be paying whatever the market is at that point or whatever we can negotiate. So it made sense to replace it. We'll get another 30 years out of it, whatever it might cost at the end. Go from there.
Great. Any other final questions on the articles?
Quick question from Brian. Joe, what are your thoughts on Black Earth? Are you familiar with that program?
Very familiar. Is there anything specific that you're trying to get to?
Well, what's interesting to me is we've been doing it for the last year. My daughter signed us up, and I swear the volume of trash that we put out is halved. And I wonder if there's a way that we can incentivize people to pony up for that somehow, because I feel like it could make a huge difference in the amount of stuff that ends up going through.
I'm glad you asked that question. This one is definitely Ann's wheelhouse here.
So we do, anyone new signing up for Black Earth, we provide them with the bin and liners, which is a starter kit, which costs about $33 through Black Earth. We provide it here. We purchased them through the DEP grant we got. And then we have one of the trash supervisor deliver it to the new person's home who's starting up on that. So that's been the incentive. We've given out about 400 of those starter kits. One of the interesting things is some people do the Black Earth just during the summer and they stay away from during the winter, so they come back. We have currently now about 433 people that in Wakefield who are using that service.
What is that service?
Composting. So, you know, for those of us that remember the old little lid that you stepped on in the backyard with a pail in it, the same thing that curbside. So all your organics go through that. It diverts about almost 2 tons a week, believe it or not, that they pick up. You know,
You want to go in there, Ali?
So far this year, we've 88.4 tons have gone through Black Earth.
That's fabulous. I mean, what a great thing. And you get a little, really, a tasty, soil for your garden at the end of it.
Absolutely. The only unfortunate thing is they haven't scaled up to the point yet where I think they can handle mass, a program that covers the whole community, but for now, it's working and.
Good. All right, Dan, you, question hand up again? Sorry.
Yeah, I didn't see anything on the articles in Govinda other than refuse. Is there a write-up on those and when can we get them? And number two, is any of those articles other than the dollar tax levy or are they all borrowings?
It's just fuel pump.
It's the fuel pumps, I think.
Yeah, the big one, the 5 million would be a borrowing. Would probably be general obligation. And then the fuel island would be a tax levy appropriation.
Okay, can we get some materials on that, Mr. Mayo?
Sure can.
Because I need to add it to the spreadsheet. And I'd like to know more about it.
Very good. DPW staff, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Appreciate you coming in.
It's our meeting.
That's the budget for tonight. Kevin, you're all set if you want. We've got a school presentation coming up.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can share your screen, I believe.
Yes, I can.
All right, so, yesterday, our committee met, with the schools for the second time. The book, was issued to the, school council, I believe, Monday night, Tuesday night. Tuesday night, and then, we got it, Tuesday night, and you guys, folks got it today. Just real quick, there's a few people on, so from the school committee, could you just say hello and who you are, please, so people know.
Sure, Kevin Fontanella.
You.
Stephen Ingles, School Committee. And Tom Markham, School Committee.
Was there somebody else on?
Scablo, School Committee.
Thank you.
And from the Wakefield Public Schools, Christine?
Hi, Christine Bafagna.
Thank you. Okay, so the book really just came out today, today for a lot of you. We're not looking to cover really too much of it necessarily, but we always want to bring the school in a couple of times. This being the first, so Doug's got a presentation that hopefully you all could see. I think you're gonna run through. You guys can see the presentation, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you for having us tonight. So this is a similar slide deck to the one we presented last night to school committee. We cut out survey information to just kind of boil it down to get to the budget. And so just to start off, this is what our calendar is looking like. We presented last night or tonight to school committee as a first draft of the budget. Then we met last night with the finance subcommittee and FinCom liaisons. We are presenting tonight to FinCom. We have a public hearing scheduled for next week. We'll get feedback. Post-COVID, we haven't gotten a lot of feedback during public hearings. Before that, pre-COVID, we would get a little feedback, and we've made some adjustments based on the proposals or the feedback that we've gotten during that time. We've filled a lot of gaps since then. We've gotten feedback in the past during public hearing on items like school nurses. We don't have enough school nurses. Can we get more coverage? School counselors. And so since that time, I think we've filled those gaps. So we might get some participation there. So we'll take that next week. The week after that, we will be taking all the feedback that we've gotten and or making adjustments based on kind of that feedback that we've gotten. And on the 26th, the school committee will be making a vote on the proposed budget that we put forward last night. We're here tonight early before the budget's approved, and we will be here after for FinCom on the 11th, but we'll also be on April 8th, we'll be at town council as well. So that's just a kind of a snapshot of our calendar. What we're gonna cover tonight is just a very quick look at budget priorities, knowns and unknowns, challenges. Then we want to talk a little bit about the feedback that you all have provided to us last year. Not only in the budgeting process, but also through town meeting. We could talk about that, and that has impacted a lot of the decisions that we've made this year in our proposed budget. And you'll see that as we go through the slides. So budget priorities for FY '25 for us is to fund the new teacher contract. This is a big deal. As you see around the state, you saw what happened in Newton. We're very pleased to have got a tentative agreement in place with our teachers. And that it hasn't been ratified yet, but we're hoping that they're gonna ratify their contract. They have to present it to their members, and then they wait a week. They have a waiting period, get feedback, and then they'll have a vote. We're thinking that that's gonna happen in the next 3 weeks. And so, just to be clear, this contract was supposed to start in FY '24. Because it took so long, we kind of negotiated into the school year this year. So this contract is a 4-year contract, basically a 1 and a 3, right? So the FY '24 kind of budget or COLA increase is 3%. For '25, it's 3.5. For '26, it's 4. And for '27, it's 3.5, right? So if you're doing the math on that, it's 14% increase over 4 years. So another priority for us is to maintain intervention services and resources to ensure progress for all students. We need to continue to explore opportunities to accelerate students who are ready to be accelerated. We always try to provide a scale here about how large are the Wakefield Public Schools. Currently, we have 604 employees in 7 bargaining units, right? The next bullet is important, and we'll talk a little bit more about labor. We need to be able to continue to recruit, retain, and develop outstanding teachers, paraeducators, as well as people in the other bargaining units. Labor is a big deal for us. We were at the legislators' breakfast on Monday, Steve? Tuesday morning, and the legislators are talking about labor shortages, pipelines, trying to get migrant workers papers so that they can work, all sorts of programs. But absent from a lot of these conversations are teachers, right? Like, we can't hire teachers. We used to post a position, we used to post a kindergarten position and get 300 applicants. Now we're getting 40, right? In high school, if you're an advanced placement teacher, a physics teacher, a chem teacher, you're lucky to get 4 to 6 applicants. And of those 4 to 6, maybe 1 or 2 are competitive. The pipeline just is not there. So this is something that's a big deal for us. And one of the things that is going to help us, is the new contract that we have just agreed to tentatively. I think that's going to be a draw for our town, and I think it's an appealing increase. But even with that, I think there's not a lot of people going into teaching right now. Just an observation. So again, we've talked in the past about knowns and unknowns. So human resources and personnel is a known and what it's costing for labor right now, but it's also an unknown in terms of being able to hire teachers in the future. It's a question mark. We need to create schedules and increase opportunities for intervention and acceleration. I mentioned that earlier. We need to prioritize time for professional development for teachers to collaborate, to further and kind of adapt to the new demands that they're seeing in the classroom. Post-COVID, teaching and learning has changed. The demands are more, right? The needs of students are more, it's a fact. And so unknowns, balancing programming that we've created in district. Many of you have heard us talk about balancing out of district costs with trying to replicate or create programming in district to keep students here to save money. out of district costs have not only become exorbitant, but there's also now new add-ons with transportation. And they've also provided a new upcharge. If we're sending students out, they'll say, you know, it's great to have young Doug Lyons at our school. You do have to pay for transportation from Wakefield. And we believe he's going to need a paraeducator. So they kind of backed you. It's a pass through, right? And so that's a big deal for us. And so unknowns, well, knowns and unknowns, is our growing English language learner population. So I'm going to date myself here. It used to be, the acronym used to be ESL. Then it became English language learner, ELL. Then it became English learner. And now the acronym has moved to ML, multilingual learner, right? And really what this means is the number of families moving into Wakefield, their first language is not English. And depending on where they are in the learning of English, we do a home language survey and they get rated on a 5-step scale. And if they're in steps 1 through low 3, they're entitled to 2 periods a day of support, English language support. So they're learning English to learn their subjects in English, right? And so if they're on the high side, high 3, 4, and 5, they're entitled to 1 period a day. But in the 3,000 or 3,400 students, 3,431, it's kind of not an equal distribution of students that we have. So right now we have a cluster in kindergarten, and we're trying to adapt to that. So it's not linear, right? So, and it's not only our school system, it's happening with school systems across the state. So, but that's something that we're trying to adapt to, but that's an unknown. I'll give you an example. In Melrose, in the last 18 months, I think they've gotten 400 families that have children that have multilingual learners, right? So
In the last how many months?
18 months.
Thanks.
And so that's an approximation. So
Yeah,
please,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know, so additional increase in costs for just for goods and services. Joe touched a little bit on that in his budget review. And climate change is a very real thing. You know, we've saved money on snow and ice, but you know, we still, you know, as things are getting warmer, you know, we don't have a way to cool the Greenwood. And, you know, they kind of rock with it. The teachers rock with it, the kids rock with it. But, you know, when it's 93 degrees or 94 degrees in a classroom, you know, teachers are still folding themselves up and getting on the rug with kids, which is great. But at some point, we're going to need to kind of address the age of that building, accessibility in that building, and how we might be able to just address the heating and cooling needs, or really cooling needs. Challenges. We talked last night about our challenges. Challenges with enrollment and space in pre-K. You know, if you build it, they'll come. Right now, our numbers in pre-K and K are high, right? And so I put pre-K on here because not only are we kind of busting at the seams at Doyle for our specialties, our services. So if a student needs occupational therapy, speech therapy, physical therapy that they could get in school, we're just running out of space. Right now, we have 2 additional classrooms, pre-K classrooms, that we're running out of Woodville Elementary. And this year, we've turned away 63 students, and they're Wakefield families. So, you know, through COVID and post-COVID, a lot of options for pre-K education has gone away. They've either closed or they've shrunk or they're full. They just can't kind of take more people. So that's something that we really need to look at. Because if we had a choice and we had the space, we would take all 60 plus of those families because they're our kids. The more time we have with them before they enter kindergarten, the greater opportunity we're going to have them be able to hit the ground running and do really well. Anyway, just something to think about. Continue to support our growing multilingual learner population. Just for context, a 10-year look at that. 10 years ago, we were at about 20 English language learners. Now we're at about 118, right? So another piece that is not really kind of spoken about enough is also our low income designation for students. A decade ago was at about 10%. Now we're at about 17.2%. So, and it's an interesting kind of data point when you look at the cost of housing in Wakefield, right? And so it's often things that people don't know or pay attention to. Challenges, we're working on building a new high school, right? And so we've made tremendous progress to get where we are. And the sub bullets there, achieving NEASC accreditation and ADA accessibility. Our current building is not as accessible as it needs to be. So this will address the ADA concerns. And our NEASC accreditation, the kind of the last piece that we need to kind of get done is an ADA compliant building with lab spaces that can educate kids. And that will kind of support our NEASC accreditation, and we will be back and for full accreditation and back in their good graces. So we're also looking to expand opportunities for early college and internship programs. I wasn't joking when I said to Joe, it'd be great to send some kids to DPW. I was listening to him and I thought, it's awesome what all of the balls that he has in the air. And so we're looking also at acceleration academies. These have been funded through state grants primarily, but they're so helpful to our students and families. We really want to try to kind of keep an eye on this and make sure that fundings continue to come from the state. If it doesn't, we would be remiss not to continue some of those programs or to try to work it into the regular budget. And also one of the things that we've really tried to kind of make a greater investment in, and the town side has helped with technology on this. I can't say enough about Tim O'Brien and his work in this space, but we're working on school safety and cyber safety. Christine, you want to kind of pick it up in regard to feedback or?
Absolutely. So throughout this whole budget season, which started in the fall, we've been working with our Finance and Facilities Subcommittee, which is it's a subgroup, and I think they're represented there tonight, of our larger school committee. We've had some conversations about what's going into the budget and the budget timeline, and then gathering data all through this season through principals, department heads, and then also our budget survey. But we've also had some guidance from FinCom, from our liaisons, who Jim said who has come to our meetings to help us understand how the town is funding our budgets. We've looked at what happened last year through the town meeting and how we need to look at all revenue sources. So I don't know if you noticed, I know a lot of you got the book today, but you'll see the book is 93 pages. I think that's up from 67 pages last year. What we did is we did a deep dive into all revenue sources, all of our revolving accounts. There's two sections, look, 4 years of actuals and then projections for next year. And then in section 2 of the revenue pages, we've done a 10-year projection, 7 years of prior actuals, and then projecting out for the next 4 years about what we can afford. So there's a lot of more information in this book. We've kind of looked at all revenue sources. I call it an all funds budget. So we can see what we can support to not put the burden on the town on what we can increase from 24 to 25. So we talked about Chapter 70. Now I know this year, no district is seeing a big increase in Chapter 70. We're seeing about a 1.2% increase in Chapter 70, which is little over $100,000. It's really disappointing, but we just wanted to highlight it because this is how we fund, the town helps to fund and support the schools in Wakefield. So we just wanted to highlight that because last year we saw a 9% increase. We saw a much greater increase than we're seeing this year. Now we know this is the governor's budget. We know that this can change as the budget moves through the House and the Senate. But right now, this is the projection that we have to move forward with. Next slide. So I call this the money slide. This is the money slide of where we are now from this budget in 24 to what we're asking for the town to support in 25. Now, as we'll all remember, in last year, we worked with the school committee and we had a budget of just over $50 million. We talked to FinCom, we talked to all stakeholders, and we kind of looked at where we could access budget offsets. from our revolving accounts. So between the town, the ARPA money and the revolving accounts, we reduced that budget by $500,000. Now, all that really did was reduce where the revenue was coming from. Our base budget in 24 was still over $50 million. So I think this is important to show that our budget in 24 that we're in now is still $50 million. It's just where the revenue is coming from. So we are moving to a budget next year of just over 52. But when we're asking for the 52,319,699, that is in fact an increase of 5.5 over the $49 million. I just think it's important to show that the base was reduced. But we're just asking for this increase based on the lower number. I just want to make sure that's clear.
Happy to take any questions that anyone might have.
Good. You want to stop sharing? Sure. Lori?
Yeah, this is a somewhat plagiarized question. I've heard Doug Butler ask it before.
Okay.
But, and I really I was curious about the answer. As for the low income calculation, because that's a lot of students. If you're saying 17% of the 3,431 students based on, but when you think about the real estate in the town, the trends and whatnot, was Doug's question. I thought it was quite clever. Have the metrics changed at all on what determines, have like the threshold for what determines a low income student, has that changed dramatically in the last 4 to 5 years?
I think it has, but
Okay.
I don't know if it's changed dramatically, Lori.
Okay.
I think it's changed.
Yeah.
But I don't have that change right with me.
Yeah, no, and that's just like a question. If either tell me where to go out, I'll go look, or if you want to get back to me, I don't want you to
think we
spend.
can get it right off profiles.
Okay.
At Department.
I'd be curious to see how much that changed, because that's actually a good solid amount of students, but maybe perhaps they've changed the metric and I'm not discounting.
No.
But it would be good to understand the metric in relation to the number of students. Were these students probably somewhat in this category and, all along, we just weren't recognizing them as such?
Right. I don't have a perfect answer.
No worries.
But DESI profiles will answer that. So that's number one. But the other part of that is that the other concern, and discuss this with Steve, is Title I for us was cut in half about 5 years ago. And so we were getting about $260,000. Now we're getting about $140,000 roughly. I'm just going, those are rough numbers. But with whether the designation changes or not, Title I is for the income designation, right? So if it increases, if they change the metric or not, right? If the population is changing, then that should pivot as well.
It seems like they're going in opposite directions, and I know there was like a big push too to get folks to fill out the
FAFSA.
the lunch forms and all that thing to get it. So is that still a thing, or?
Well,
We're much better in that space. Go ahead, Christine.
So could I just chime in? So the state uses its metrics of the students that access to state programs. So everyone thinks, we have free and reduced lunch. So meals are free. So students aren't filling out as many forms, but they have a metric of students that live in the Wakefield that are still accessing programs. I don't know if you've all heard of SNAP. It's a program, it's for families for food and supplies for their family. So if they access the SNAP program, EBT cards, we have that metrics, and so does DESI. Also, there's a transitional assistance plan from the state that if students and families access that program, that ties into DESI's metrics. So that ties into what we're when we file everyone's heard of our October 1 data. When we file our October 1 data, the state cross-references that with their programs, and that helps them to identify students who are in this category. I hope that helps.
It does, thank you. My other question was more of a theoretical thing, and I don't want to bog the group down with this. But years ago, when I was sort of a little bit more involved in schools, there was a lot of time spent on like, what is the time on learning for kids? Is that still a metric you track? Do you talk about it? Do you like, where is that? Because I thought that was a very interesting metric, and it's good to understand in the context of a $52 million budget.
It's probably what, it was one of the biggest things that we talked about with our new contract. And so, some of the changes that we've made,
Yep.
is to increase time on learning. But we do keep track, we're required to keep.
I didn't mean to point at you, but I was like, right on.
We're required to keep track of it. So
Yeah.
at elementary, it's 900 hours or 300 instructional minutes a day.
Yep.
At secondary, which is in our case, middle and high,
Yep.
it's 990 hours a year, which is 330 instructional minutes a day.
Yep. So that is worked into the contract and,
Well, the increase in time is part of our process, our negotiations. Yeah.
okay?
So yes, it's very important to us.
Just for your benefit and Christine, so I did send out the book and I also sent out the spreadsheets. So the folks on the call, got the spreadsheets that you guys provided and you're providing more. And so they have that, although they just got it, they may not have.
I didn't have it, I have to admit
They
it, that's
haven't-
in the book.
Many folks.
I did not get to crack it this afternoon,
No,
so
no,
I apologize
I
if
was
it's
letting
in the book.
Folks from the schools know, because we had asked for it and a lot of people on this call have asked for it, so we provided what you have given us. Christine gave us a few more just today. And the crack ace, Brian has been churning away at it and asking some questions relative to the spreadsheets, but just so you folks know, they just got it. Dan.
All right, yeah, good evening. Thanks for coming in. So I'm gonna describe, I got three phases. I've got the good, the neutral, and the ugly. The good is I really like what you've done by expanding on the revolving accounts, and I see the revolving accounts are going down over time. Giving some of the money back to the parents is great. As you guys know, I was fairly critical of the size of the balances in those revolving accounts and didn't understand why we had so much money sitting around. So that's good. I haven't, obviously, because we just got it, I haven't had a chance to dive into a lot of this other stuff. But I'm curious on the neutral, the sped. We have roughly, I think, 300,000, and Kevin just hung up, so, well, maybe he's still there. How much do we have left in the special sped account,
Yes.
a reserve?
Stabilization account.
Yeah, so
I
we.
believe it's 322 or I'm just going from memory. It could be off.
Yeah, so we did talk about that at our subcommittee about, we need about 178,000 to get up to 500,000, which we may want to think about, Dan. So.
Right. So, okay, great. So 322. So how do things look this year? Do you think the school committee will be coming to town meeting with an article to tap any of that stabilization account this year?
So at this point, Dan, no. Our out of districts are increasing by a few students. They're still considerably lower than they had been in previous budgets. So the building of programs in district is working, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we're not anticipating at this point coming to the stabilization fund. So, and the next question might be circuit breaker, right?
Yeah.
So we're also using circuit breaker. We're using more out of circuit breaker to kind of offset those costs as well.
Okay, great. And now the ugly, and I'm going to point the ugly, not only just at the school committee and the schools, but also to Mr. Mayo, because we have so far, according to Kevin's spreadsheet, we're spending 5.58% more in 25 and 24. This is excluding the schools. The schools is asking for 5.5%. So that's still going to come in roughly at 5.5%. We might tweak it here, tweak it there, but somewhere around 5.5% is what our spending is going to be over last year or for current 24. And based on my projections right now, income is going to be about a 3.5% increase, 3.5%. So right now I'm showing a significant deficit in our budget for 25. So I would encourage at this point, unless something changes in the last couple of budgets that we have left, which we don't have much left, I think there's going to be some healthcare and some other small stuff. But right now, we've got a significant deficit. So I would encourage the schools and Mr. Mayo to go back to all these budgets and take a closer look at where we're spending, because 5.5 versus 3.5 doesn't work in the long run. Thank you.
Right. No, appreciate it. So, yeah,
He's referring to the rest of the budgets that we've
I
reviewed.
get it. No,
so,
that's-
so those are 5.58
Yep.
that we've seen before the town council and before ourselves. Ed?
Doug, first of all, congratulations on settling the contract.
Thank you.
I'm sure it was not easy to do,
No.
but it's a calm doing that. I'm sure it's for the town. I haven't been able to go through the book.
Yeah.
I did read the local paper. It's true that you are not adding any additional staff in fiscal two?
So at this point in the year, we're not adding any additional staff. And so, and preface my statements to both to school committee, and the presentation of this budget, you know, our first position is going to be to try to live within the footprint and live with the staff we have. And if we can reconstitute or reassign people, we'll do that. With the caveat that, you know, things can change in a moment in schools, right? I used Woburn as an example. You know, if we have a development and, you know, we have a number of families move in that need services that we need to provide by statute, we might need to bring on new people. The mechanism to do that, we will meet with the labor subcommittee and they will kind of scrutinize anything that we're asking for. And we'll go from there. But right now, there's no new positions in this budget.
Anybody else? Dennis?
Yeah, is there any intention, I mean, you're talking about needing more space for kindergarten stuff, of reusing or repurposing the Hurd School?
Well, Steve knows how I feel about this. I love the Hurd building. I think it's one of the most beautiful buildings in town here.
In a great part of town.
It's a great part of town. They had a great third grade play back in the day. Rumpelstiltskin was, you know, Steve Mayo.
Wow, this is information.
Yeah. Anyway, Dennis, I'm sorry to not be more direct. So we have not looked at Hurd just yet. We looked at Hurd when we brought Walton online a few years ago, when we kind of renovated in Walton because we didn't know how, if we were going to be over kind of time with construction or not have access to the school. Thank goodness we got access. But the problem with Hurd is that to get it to a level where we could bring people in there to educate them, I think that would be a tremendous amount of money to do that. But we have not talked about Hurd since we brought Walton online.
I'm only thinking about it as kindergarten use, not grade school where you need labs and stuff like that. I was
Right.
thinking about it as another centralized kindergarten, pre-kindergarten building. That's all. Okay, thank
I
you.
think it's a great idea.
Having not looked at the book, is preschool revenue earning? Like, is it net revenue earn or
No.
no? Okay.
And so, no. And so.
So bringing, not that we wouldn't want to, but bringing the 63 students that were sort of you were unable to take them in, that would bring on more costs as opposed to net zero or revenue earning.
It would bring on more revenue. Because, right, so Doyle,
Yep.
right, Doyle was, the primary function of Doyle is to provide early intervention services for students.
Yep.
Which are special education students.
Yep.
Right, that's not at a cost. So if those students, they're entitled to this.
So it's all sped, not regular?
Not all, no. It's regular ed students and special education students.
Okay.
So, but the
Gotcha.
63 students that were turned, we couldn't accommodate, those are regular ed students. That would be.
So on that
Yeah.
side of the education, I'm sorry, I keep talking over, my brain's working a little
That's
fast.
okay.
So if on that side of the equation, if you will, not the sped side, is that revenue earning?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I would have expected based on like the preschool model and,
Yes.
okay.
The other piece.
So if you looked at Doyle as a whole, you have different moving parts, but if you look at the 63 that you left on, they would add to the revenue side of the
Tuition
equation, it would be a net positive.
Tuition paying
Okay,
students.
yeah, thank you.
There's still a space problem, Doyle.
Yes, no, I was just curious, like when we leave those 62 students out, we'd love to as a town, you wanna bring them in-house, or you wanna have them
Agreed.
here.
Agreed.
And it's just going forward, like when I'm thinking of Dan's models and the like, if you were to score that space or find out a way to get them in.
Yeah.
Is it revenue, is it cost, like what trend is that going? So that would be more the revenue side of the
Yeah,
equation. Okay,
correct.
thank you.
All right, the only observation I had, I did look at some of the spreadsheets, so the offsets last year were 6.2 million approximately. The offsets proposed for 25 are 5.58. So that's a change of about 600,000, primarily due to grant offsets. Grants dropped from 2.9 to about 2.1, about 800,000.
Christine.
They revolve.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, Christine, revolving accounts, offset was 1.3, that went up to 1.8 or almost 1.9 as described, so that's great. And then, of course, we had ARPA that was around 400 last year available, and this year it's 100 available. So just when I looked at, what I would call the base budget before the offsets, it was X, and then, so the offsets are down by 617,000, even after the effort put forth because of grants, and circuit breaker is still the same for some reason on the spreadsheet, but in any event.
Yeah, because we haven't put the students that we're anticipating going out have not been charged to that.
Yeah, okay.
So Jim, thank you for pointing that out. Basically, what you're looking at is the balance sheet. So it's where the revenue's coming in and the offsets for the expenditures for all of our schools and for our district-wide programs. But you're right, even though with our efforts to increase our revolving offsets, our grants are down next year. COVID relief funding is over. Our one-time ESSER money has expired. So we've lost that. So, and then our ARPA request from the town has also gone down.
Right, so I mean, my point to that, I think also was similar to the fire department. The fire department had the safer grants that expired. You guys had some ESSER that have also expired. So, there's some unique activities in some of our budgets. So.
Right.
Not favorably.
Yeah.
Thanks. Anybody else for now? The schools are expected to be back 4/11 to visit us again towards the end of our cycle, along with the Voc School. So you got some information today from myself. You'll get some more spreadsheets through Christine that's already worked on them, and Brian's been pounding the keys. I'm sure he'll share some things with the team, as I will too, just playing with numbers in Excel. So anything else? Appreciate you all coming in. Appreciate the
Thank you.
the ability to make it for us. Thank you all.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for all the information. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
All right.
Good night. Thank you.
How are you?
Great, great.
Back in the fray.
Yeah.
Back in the fray, huh?
Going?
It's going right.
It's a family.
Everything's good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone know, everyone like.
Well, yeah, empty nesting. My daughter, she's graduating high school. College. Oh, I'm sorry. We were just chatting.
Are you?
All right. All right, I'll leave.
She won't be long. Thanks.
We're done. We didn't do the meeting. We didn't close the meeting out.
Minutes. All right, so we'll move it through the agenda. We've got minutes left. Kevin, you're still here.
I'm still here.
That's dedication. All right, we're gonna go over the.
Going out a better place.
First set of minutes is January 11th, 2024. I finally locked myself in a room and got through those minutes that Doug Butler was supposed to do, but he didn't. So you should have those from the agenda from Govenda. I'll entertain a motion.
So move.
Second?
Second.
So that was Billy that moved it. So I'm talking about the minutes for January 11th, 2024. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the full committee minutes from January 11th, 2024? Anyone
Aye.
opposed? No one opposed. We have committee meeting minutes as well from February 29th, 2024. I'll entertain a motion on those minutes.
Motion to approve?
Second,
Thank you. Dennis, any discussion on the meeting minutes from, a few weeks back? February 29th. Seeing none, all those in favor of the meeting minutes, February 29, from full committee?
I,
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. We have, Department of Public Works committee meetings, committee meeting minutes
March 1st.
from, 3-1, and that would be, myself and Ellie, Stefan, and, Dennis. Take a motion, on those minutes?
So moved.
second,
Thank you, Ellie, Dennis. Any discussion on the subcommittee minutes from Department of Public Works from 3-1? Three of us in favor?
Yep.
Unanimous. Final subcommittee minutes, subcommittee meeting minutes from the fire department of March 6, 2024. Entertain a motion.
so move,
Anybody else on that? Thank you. Any discussion on, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
Yes,
Mr. Chairman, sorry, I just want to note I was absent, so I'll abstain.
thank you. Any discussion on the fire department meeting minutes?
Who seconded that one?
It was.
I did, Teray.
Trey, thank you, Trey.
Dennis.
Yep.
So Dennis, Trey, thank you. Any discussion on those minutes? All those in favor of the
yeah,
subcommittee?
Jim,
Yes,
hang
sir. Yes.
I'm looking at the list of people who attended and I don't see Teray's name.
Okay,
should be in there. Let me look at it.
No, I see my name here.
Yeah.
Says
On the meeting?
Terrain Fire Department. Yeah, fire. I see. Yeah.
Under present.
Yes, under present.
Oh, there it is. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. My apologies. I found it. I expected it to be the first line, not the third.
It's because I was virtual and everyone else was in person.
Aha.
Yes.
Yeah, I tried to do it. So everybody know who was in the building and who wasn't.
Yeah. Those.
professionally and orderly as usual, Dennis, thank you. I'll entertain a motion to accept.
So move,
I think we already moved, so we're voting.
Yes, sir. Voting to accept?
All right, all in favor, yep.
Okay.
Very good, that's unanimous. Any committee meeting, any committee comments? Excuse me. Haven't joined. You. The only comment I have, I appreciate the subcommittee meeting minutes getting done. Sort of timely and trying to get it out. We got ours done for DPW, it was done for fire department, so I appreciate that. We talked about it the last meeting. Try to get it out as early as you can. I've generally just been getting it to Sherry and she puts it in Govenda. So I guess you just have to keep checking Govenda to see it versus knowing it's there.
And you'll get a notification.
Yeah, you're gonna notice that something
Yeah, right.
changed.
Right.
Right? And the only other thing is to keep in mind, if you're the chair of a, if you're a chair of a subcommittee, you should attend the town council meeting to represent us as a subcommittee or somebody from your committee if you can't, just to speak on behalf of the budget that's before town council. We don't really say too much, but we're there, we represent, you know, a little bit of the summary of your meeting minutes from what you saw. So just reminder of that. And obviously, post your meeting minutes, post your meetings, which I think folks are doing a nice job at. Dan?
Yeah, so I wondered if the Finance Committee would like to see the latest and greatest of my projection and where we're at so far on income expenditures and so forth. And if so, if Steve could give me rights to share screen.
That's done.
And I know you were gonna try to talk about something.
Yeah, a couple of things. There is a meeting of the group insurance subcommittee next week that I think Finance Committee will be happy with the numbers coming in on that one. And I think when we roll that in, I think we're starting to get down into the 4% range on the town side, or we'll be in the fours somewhere. That's item number one. Item number two, Dan, I have the preliminary, unless Kevin wants to give it to you, some good news on the VOC budget.
Go ahead.
Steve, I didn't print it out, so.
I got it.
Yeah.
I got it. Okay. I printed it out. The FY25 assessment, which I think you have on your spreadsheet as 2.5258973.
Yep.
Preliminary number came in this afternoon or tonight at 6 o'clock. 2,383,203.
That's helpful.
That's helpful. I'm trying to make you happy, Dan, when I can.
Dynamic activity.
The other thing is that we did have and Doug mentioned it, the whole entire state delegation from the North Shore was at the chamber meeting, and they have this legislative breakfast every year. And next year I'll forward it to the Finance Committee because you guys might like being there too. They talk a little bit about the state budget and they hem and haw and they tease me because they call me More Money Mayo because I'm always asking for more money, and that's okay. But I did challenge them on the Chapter 70 money this year because Chapter 70 money was horrid for everybody. The governor's budget includes a minimum increase of $30 per student for most districts. Wakefield is in that same shape, $30 per student. I challenged them at the meeting because they haven't used the fair share amendment in their budget calculations yet, and that's the so-called millionaire's tax. It has what, 1.4 billion in it or something like that. Something like that. They haven't tapped that at all, and I thought that was a good spot.
Doug mentioned to me at the subcommittee that they're not expecting anything from the millionaire's tax for school purposes this year.
Well, but that, yes, so far, I challenged them to go up to $100 per student as a minimum. And I think that they're gonna go up a little bit, maybe to $60 per student, which for us might be, another 200 grand or something, but it's something. So a lot of communities are very upset right now.
And what about the unrestricted aid?
That went up by about 3%, but that's not a huge amount for, anyway.
Right.
But it did go up.
I mean, those are all, components, right?
Yeah. All right, sorry, Dan, I didn't mean to steal your thunder.
Oh, you didn't steal anything. You helped me out. But I'm just going to follow up on the healthcare budget because Don's still on, I hope. Because we need to get together. So I've got a 4% increase in the healthcare costs at roughly 14.7 million. Are you saying it's going to be less than 4?
I'm saying that the tax levy budget we're going to present to the subcommittee, and I'll send it out tomorrow. The tax levy portion is 13,455,095, including OPEB.
That's a huge decrease.
No, you have it at, what do you have it at?
14.6 plus $1 million for OPEB.
But I think no, because you have some of the enterprise funds in there, I think.
Yes, I do. So on the enterprise funds.
I wish it was that much of a drop, Dan.
Yeah. On enterprise funds, I'm pulling out 2.5 million from that. So yeah, so now it's down to 12.1 plus $1 million. So I'm at 13.1. And what did you say you had?
I said for the tax levy, including the personnel services in the account, including that, we're coming in at 13,455,095.
Oh, that's pretty much exactly where I am.
And that
right
includes
now.
OPEB. That includes OPEB.
Yeah, okay. That should give us a break. Okay.
I'll send that to you too, Dan, so you can tomorrow, so you can play with that if you want.
Yeah, so that helps quite a bit. Because right now I'm showing a deficit for this year at $387,000. And it sounds like that will get wiped out by what you're doing with healthcare.
Right, close, yeah.
And then,
I'd have
and
to
then,
look at the whole thing.
yeah, and then I also note that the fire reserve fund transfer was in around 300,000, but I also saw where DPW fire snow and ice is 300,000. So those two cancel roughly.
Yeah, close, yep.
Yeah, close to that. So
Yep.
we may be okay. We're still going to have some deficit after this year of roughly 1.2, 1.3 million. But we might be okay this year. Might be okay. Okay.
Good.
Yeah, we still can look at the end of the year return money too, right?
Right, yeah.
You got a line item for that?
Yeah. Dennis, that's in here. I actually have that right here as $1 million coming back. We expect $1 million coming back. That's been our average.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And that's assuming, okay, yeah, well, I think it'll be more, but okay.
Well, yeah, Steve, we talked
Yeah.
about this about 6 months ago, and we just threw $1 million in as a
Right.
Right,
We had a higher
placeholder.
number, we bounced it around at the
Right.
forecasting committee, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. It varies. Well, you can see here, it's 4 million in 23, but only 2 million in 22. So there's a high variance there.
yeah. And those free cash numbers came out pretty good.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so the way things are shaken right now, our end of year free cash looks like it's going to be, around 10 million and decreasing over time. Obviously it'd be better if it increased over time because the total budget's increasing, but at least it's not at zero, negative.
Right.
All right. Okay. And this is using your income figures, not mine.
Yeah, here we go again.
Oh,
The one thing
oh,
I
you're
never
talking
want
about-
to discuss, I want
Yeah.
a real goddamn number on both sheets.
Yeah, it's my local receipts. Yeah,
It's the
local
local
receipts.
receipts.
Yeah, so 23, our local receipts was 9.1 million. So this year I'm predicting 9.5 and then 9.7 to 25. We'll see. Hey, Kevin, how's it going for local receipts?
Good, very good.
Good, very good.
So-
That's like a parrot. I've never heard that before.
So Kevin, you're buying dinner again.
Again, he hasn't bought it yet.
Dreaming about pennies when we get dimes. All right, Ken, you good for now then? You-
I gotta say, thanks to the hard work of this committee. We're in much better shape than a lot of my colleagues are around us, really looking at some tough times.
Yeah, we talked to the schools briefly about a number of communities in a huge deficit with the education.
You saw the Globe article yesterday, all these
Yeah.
communities, well-off communities going for override.
Yeah, operational overrides.
It's stunning.
How would that go over at a town meeting? Holy cow. All right, anything else for the committee? Dan, you good?
Jim,
Yes, sir. Brian.
in talking about the revolving accounts and the high balances that were in them, I got the sense last year that there was simply, from the school committee perspective, there was simply no movement, no possible way for us to somehow take advantage of those funds. And what I think I've seen is that they figured out how to do chargebacks basically for some of the programs that benefit from being in the school. They're now getting some money back from those programs to pay for justifiable costs associated with the program. And do I understand that right?
I would say, can I answer this?
Yeah.
I would say they're making progress, Brian.
Oh,
Just like on their
that's my
report
point.
cards, making progress.
Not a full pat on the
Not a
back.
full pat.
That makes perfect sense,
Yeah,
but I just want to point out that we're making some progress, and I think that that's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing.
We had a lot of meetings. I went to the school committee meeting, particularly on the school lunch program, because there are, there should be chargebacks for the cost of insurance.
Yeah, the health insurance.
Health insurance and things like that, and they met me halfway. I'm hoping to come the rest of the way I think in the fiscal 25 budget, should, because I think the reserves still look good. End of year and beginning of year, and I haven't had time to look at this, I just.
Yeah, and it's a very, very,
Healthy reserve.
thorough read of each one of those as well. But kudos to Dan and others on this committee that really pushed on it, and Steve, to make some movement, Brian, as well, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Okay, anything else? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, Captain.
Thank you all. See you in 2 weeks, I think.
2 weeks, yep.